Hi guys, my name is Rodney Banta, otherwise known as Rodnator, and this is your D&D channel. Today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite classes, the Druid. To begin, the Druid is nature's champion. You follow the beliefs of nature, a wild man or a wild woman per se. Your ancient vows require you to never wear metal armor. Let us lay that on the table right at the beginning of this video. Without metal armor, you lack some of the defensive bonuses of the cleric. And honestly, that loss is never really made up for in your class, unless you count the animal companion and wild shape abilities. Your animal companion is something that has to be decided very early on, and it's one of the most important decisions that you will make as a druid. An animal companion is something that you go out into nature and find, be it a normal creature that you can find on Earth or a mundane animal that you can find in the D&D universe. Animal companions are animal companions. Your animal companion is going to be your representative in nature as well as you are its representative in the normal world. Now, your druid is a spellcaster with full casting abilities, same as the cleric or the wizard. And the whole idea of the class is that you are going to be casting spells that act upon nature, call nature to your aid, or control nature with powers granted to you by nature. You are nature's cleric. So your class, while not allowed to wear metal armor, you are still allowed to wield metal weapons. Meaning that the druid with his limited proficiencies is still very capable as a melee character. And as a caster, same as the cleric. And I bet you'll find that throughout this whole video, I will continuously compare the druid to the cleric. And that is because at a base level, the two classes are extremely similar. Now, the cleric is a little bit more combat-oriented, and they're allowed to wear armor, and they worship greater deities, but there's no difference, really, because you are more spell-oriented, a little weaker on a class basis, and a little less melee-oriented, but there's no reason you can't do it. A very common build for the druid would be like, you dual-wield your scimitars, and then you go in and you just cut the crap out of things while your animal companion just destroys whatever, pick up a tiger, pick up a bear. Okay, animal companions are a huge war animal. Or I guess you could have a badger or a ferret if you wanted one. Now, another big thing is your wild shape ability that you unlock at higher levels and continues to progress as you level up. The druid's wild shape ability allows them to transform themselves into an animal for a short period of time, a limited amount of times per day. Now, the size of that animal that you can turn into, as well as the actual animal itself, changes based on how powerful you are. It doesn't make much sense for first, or I guess third level druid to transform into a raging Tyrannosaurus Rex. But it totally makes sense for a 15th level druid to do that. Druids receive a D8 with their hit dice. Now this is very important as it's the same as the cleric, meaning you are a very capable tank. Not as capable as the barbarian, not as capable as the fighter, but just as capable as the third place. You are on par with the bronze medal for your hit dice. You have that D8 hit dice, which is beautiful. It's a very good addition to the class. Because if Druid had the weakness of the wizard with like a D4, then the Druid would just be unviable. Now, the Druids, most of their spells focus along the idea of transmutation. So, rock to mud, or like they grow plants at alarming rates, or if you're an evil druid, you got wilting plants, and controlling nature is more of the evil druid style, adapting and living with nature is more of the neutral style, and fighting for nature is more of the good druid style, if you see what I'm saying. I would recommend druid races to be more elven, or I guess if you're going for power play, go for like an Aasimar or something that like a wisdom and charisma boosting race. And for the druid, I'd say I'm just going to go right on in, find my skills. Sorry, I did not go to the right page. But the druid's skills are concentration, craft, diplomacy, handle animal, heal, knowledge nature, listen, profession, ride, spellcraft, spot, survival, and swim. You'll notice that almost all of those skills have to do with being out in nature. And I would say, speaking of being out in nature, what I would take as my first level feat on any druid would be track. Because no one ever takes track in your party, and it's a very necessary feat for many different points in the game. When you're low levels, you got to find out where that ogre drug the lady from the town off to. Track. The goblins have attacked the city, but you have no idea where their, lair is. Track. Now, your weapon and arm proficiencies are you have the club, dagger, dart, quarterstaff, scimitar, sickle, short spear, sling, and normal spear. So, like I said, not the biggest weapon proficiencies, but capable of using weapons. Just not great weapons. Now, like the cleric, you are a spontaneous caster based on your alignment. So you can cast spontaneous cure and inflict spells depending on whether you're good or evil. The druid also gains some abilities known as nature sense and wild empathy at first level. Nature sense is just a general little bump to your survival checks as well as your knowledge nature checks. And that makes sense because you live out there. I mean, that's how you do things. You're out, you sleep on the ground. You live in a tiny little hut. Like literally think of like a swamp witch. That's how druids kind of live. Now, they also get this wild empathy, which allows them to communicate with animals based on their physical movements, the tone of voice that they have. So you can't directly speak to an animal without the use of a spell, but you can get your message across to an animal without that spell, because you are a druid. And like I said before, knowing the knowledge of druidic, like speaking druidic, is very powerful, because if you meet another druid, you can immediately call them out if they're a druid or not, whether or not they know how to speak druidic, because you basically have to know how to speak druidic to be a druid. Now, I would say Woodland Stride, which is what you get at second level, is very important as it lets you just kind of go over terrain without any terrain minuses as long as you're in nature. Trackless Step at third level just lets you go through and not leave any tracks, so you can't be tracked by other people. And I kind of said something a second ago. You can't start with a monstrous animal companion. I'd say my favorite would be a horse or a wolf at first level. But once you get to fourth level, you can switch out your animal companion for a much more powerful animal companion, like a boar, a cheetah, a crocodile, a dire wolf, like a wolverine, like a shark, like a large shark in an aquatic campaign. So just picking an animal companion is one of the most important things that a druid can do. Now, on top of that, the wild shape ability that they get at fifth level is kind of powerful, but it's also extremely complicated. So you lose the ability to speak when you're in your wild shape form. Your vocal cords disappear. Your mouth, or they would change. Your mouth would change shape. You could not look at your other guy and be like, "Hey, go kill this dude," because it would come out like a crocodile's roar, because now you're a crocodile. Now, this wild shape begins with like a medium class creature. So I could turn into a wolf. I could turn into like a larger dog. I could turn into, it's anything medium, basically. Any animal that's medium. Then when you get to like, I think it's sixth level, if I'm not wrong, you gain the ability to wild shape into a large class creature. So this is when you can wild shape into a bear. You can wild shape into a dire wolf yourself. Then when you get to 12th level, you can wild shape into a plant creature. So you could turn into a large like Venus flytrap monster or an ent or any like big dumb plant creature. And then at 16th level you can use wild shape into a small, medium, or large elemental. And when you get to elemental stage, you've won the game, because boom, I'm a large flame elemental. Fight me. No one's gonna. I'm a massive tanky earth elemental, or I'm a tiny little air elemental. Like when you get the elemental transformation, you've won. And at 18th level, you're able to assume form twice per day, and she can do so 3 times at 20th, and blah, blah, blah. And that lets you turn into a huge elemental. So when you hit level 20 and you become a huge elemental, you become about as powerful as some of the strongest monsters in the game. Before class levels. So throwing that out there. Most important feat you could ever grab is Natural Spell. That allows you to cast spells while in your wild shape form. This is very important for a druid, because if I'm into a crocodile, I get cursed. What am I going to do? Well, I have to cancel my wild shape. I have to then fight you as a human for the rest of the day until I unlock another one tomorrow, just because I had to uncurse myself. But if I had Natural Spell, I can just slap myself with a remove curse and still be biting the crap out of you with my crocodile and spinning and break off your leg. The druids in general, they need a high wisdom and a high charisma score. After that, I'd go dex and then strength. Con's relatively important, but once again, you're not exactly a tank, and when you wild shape, your stats will change and such. So your strength, dex, and con will get bumped. and your intelligence is pretty much completely non-important. You won't ever really use intelligence as a druid. Basically, anything that you think you would need intelligence for, a druid's going to try to use wisdom for, roleplay-wise or otherwise. Just their skills tend to be geared towards wisdom and dexterity, and in general, the class itself is just a wisdom caster, just like the cleric. Anyway, thanks for watching my video. That's how it works.